Today we're going to continue on with the natural stone wall. I'm always trying to cross the bridge of the join below, or cross the T is another way of putting it. This adds strength to the wall and creates a good visual pattern. I just continue the same process of adding stones and backfilling them.
Close the door and leave the light on. The morning light should be coming soon. Kick off your shoes and leave the winter and the pain it brings to you. Lay your head upon my shoulder. Shut off your thoughts and clear your mind.
Today we're going to continue on with the natural stone wall that sits at the end of this pre-existing deck. This wall is a continuation of the previous project where we built some retaining walls, and one of them was a natural stone wall besides the staircase under the deck. In a previous episode we got the first course of this wall laid down up against our formwork. Today we're going to be removing our formwork, raising it up and continuing the construction of the stone wall. I start this process by adjusting the timbers we use to get the first course laid down. We'll be raising them up higher on the wall so they can hold the stones in for the next layer. This isn't an exact process, but the idea is to get the board high enough so it overlaps the stones we laid previously and leaves room for the new stones we're going to be adding on the wall. By taking a look along the inside of my formwork, I can see the form's going to be too high, so I'm going to lower it a little on this end and then readjust it on the other end. I'm just double checking that we're setting it at the right height. Once I'm satisfied, I lock this screw in. I add some additional screws for strength. There's going to be a lot of pressure on this form board when we add the stones. I double check it for strength and then have a look to make sure that we've got a nice overlap on the previously laid stones. This will ensure a really flat looking wall. That sets the form for the next course of stone we're going to put on this wall. The next stage in this process is to fill all these gaps with gravel that we can see on the front of the stone we previously laid. I'm using some of the gravel that spilled out when we moved our formwork. I'm filling any voids or cracks between the stone and the formwork to create a flat surface for our next layer of concrete and natural stone. For larger voids in the cracks between the stone, I'm using chips of concrete to block the hole and then add gravel on top. Once all the voids are adequately filled, we wash off any excess gravel so it doesn't get in the way of our concrete and stop the system sticking together properly. It's really important for our stones to be extra clean, or the concrete backfill won't stick to the stones properly and we'll end up with a really weak wall. I always take my time placing these stones. This is the most creative part of this process, so I want to enjoy it. I also want to get it right. Here I'm making sure this stone stays vertical and lies in the same plane as all the previous stones we've laid. This ensures a really flat looking wall. There's a strategy on how I place these stones. I'm always trying to cross the bridge of the join below, or cross the T is another way of putting it. This adds strength to the wall and creates a good visual pattern, and is the basics of all brick and stone construction. I'm adding a relatively small stone to fill this gap, but I'm trying to match the height of the stone we've just laid. I'm continuing to add gravel chips to any voids we come across as we put these stones in. This will ensure the cement doesn't ooze through into the front of our system. I'm adding a piece of 2x4 here to give us more height on the retaining timbers in preparation for adding a large cornerstone on the end. The timber we've added here will help hold this stone flat to the plane we've established on the front of this wall. This particular stone is kind of a feature stone. This stone caught the eye of my client. She really liked this fossil mark that it had on it. So I've left it aside in a special pile, knowing that I want to put it in a feature spot, like this end corner section. I continue to add smaller timbers to our main retaining timber, so I can get larger stones in and have them sit in a stable place for the backfill of the concrete. I use scrap bits of timber and wedges to help hold these stones hard and flat up to our form. I'm adding one more 2x4 to get a bit more height on this system before we start adding some concrete for this course of the wall. I start this course by pouring concrete throughout the entire wall system so we can get really good adhesion for all the concrete we're going to be adding. I thoroughly agitate this first batch to make sure we've got a really good bond with our previously poured concrete. Then I add the next batch carefully, as I don't want to overflow the wall with concrete. I take my time with this process. I'm trying to backfill the concrete slowly but steadily to create a really solid engineered wall. The concrete behind all this stone is really what's going to be holding it up. So we continue to just fill it either with the trowel or pouring in from the tubs, agitating as we go so we can remove all the air and make sure it has good contact with any previously poured concrete. Once we've added enough concrete to stabilize the stones we added, we can add smaller stones into some of the gaps of the larger stones as we go. Add gravel chips and backfill them with concrete as we've been doing. Here I'm backfilling the concrete to create a solid bed for one of the large stones to be added. I just continue the same process of adding stones and backfilling them until we reach the top of this wall height.
Now I'm old and I think of that day, those words I could only find as I sit by your side on our back porch. That day has never left my mind. And I saw you walking down the road, summer breeze blowing through your hair. By the time I moved, you were almost gone, and I didn't know what to say. I remember that feeling, all the times I saw you smile.
With this wall complete, we return our focus to the staircase below. So we got this concrete all poured in, it's all set up solid, so we can pull off some of this formwork. I'm only removing part of this formwork. We're going to be excavating and adding onto this formwork to continue the steps going up this hill. I'm also checking that our concrete pour came out nice and solid. Most of the core parts of this formwork are going to be left in place. We'll be building on top of them to continue our concrete foundation steps. This 2x4 I'm removing now is where we're going to be joining our concrete pour, and I'll be recycling this piece as part of the step system. This is a preview of what our concrete structure is going to look like when we've finished all our pours. So today we're just going to get the next step poured on top of the one we've already created. We're repeating the same process we did with our earlier step, filling it with concrete, adding our steel reinforcement, smoothing it off and preparing for the next step. When this concrete's hardened up and set, we set the stage for the excavation and construction of the final step in this system. As we did earlier, we're standing on top of the previously poured concrete step to carry out this excavation. I'm trying not to be too aggressive with the digging and removal of this dirt. I want to keep the natural compaction of the soil intact as part of what's going to hold all our concrete firmly in place. I removed the top part of the formwork of the previous step so the concrete of this next pour can connect into it. I build a simple rectangle form for this final step, and then we add our gravel bedding in preparation for the last concrete pour of this system. I often wet down the gravel base so it doesn't suck too much moisture out of the concrete when we're pouring it in. On these upper steps, I'm able to dump the concrete straight out of the barrow, which makes it a little easier, as these require quite a large volume of concrete. As we've been doing throughout this project, we just add our concrete, agitate it, add the reinforcing steel, and enjoy our process.
Now I'm old and I think of that day, those words I could only find. I sit by your side on our back porch, the days never left my mind. I saw you walking down the road, summer breeze blowing through your hair. By the time I moved, you were almost gone, and I didn't know what to say. I remember that feeling, all the times I saw you smile.
Once the form's filled with concrete, we just smooth it out as usual and let this set up and dry. This concludes the major part of the concrete step pour. Whilst I'm set up for mixing concrete, we're going to top up the stone wall underneath the blood orange tree and make a start on the small stone wall that wraps around the top of this garden bed.
I dreamed up ways to talk to you, but I never seem to find the chance.
Just want to get that foundation started so next week we can add on top of it.
Join me on the next episode as we rip the formwork out and take a look at the concrete we created and get ready to add our hollow blocks on top.
I remember that day you gave me a smile as I got closer to you. All I could do was talk about the weather and when we go back to school. I saw you walking down the road, summer breeze blowing through your hair. By the time I moved, you were almost gone, and I didn't know what to say.
Thanks for joining me this week in my YouTube channel. Check the link below, and while you're at it, hit the subscribe button or make a comment so I can help you with your future construction solutions. And don't forget to follow our channel for more ideas and how-to tips for home and garden projects.